Hi, I'm Jeff St. John. I'm editor-in-chief at Canary Media, formerly managing editor and reporter at Green Tech Media, and before that, a newspaper reporter at the Fresno Bee, the Tri-City Herald, and the Anchorage Daily News. Canary Media is going to be covering energy transition and decarbonization issues across the board. That includes primary energy generation, transmission, distribution, and end uses in transportation and buildings and in industry. It also includes the equitable arrangements by which this decarbonization mission that we're all on can be affected and shared so that all segments of society benefit. I would say the work I've done at GTM Squared, that was the subscription site where we explain in depth some of the most complex challenges in making the transition to a networked clean energy system. I think electric vehicles are going to become a major part of the energy transition much more quickly than we might think. They're just so much more efficient at moving people and things from one place to another. And by tapping the rapid decarbonization of electricity, they can bring about a deep and lasting shift in the carbon impact of transport. Well, this might kind of show my roots, but I really like Distributech. That's the enormous utilities trade show that happens in the US every year. And it's been kind of a central clearinghouse for me in the dozen or so years I've been covering this space. Not just in seeing the focus of the presentations shift from the big iron to the more distributed, digitally enabled efforts that utilities and vendors are going into, but of course to make sure that we track from year to year which of the marketing promises are and aren't being kept by the vendors involved. Well, I don't want to call it hype necessarily because I think it's going to be really important, but green hydrogen has been driven in the past year and a half largely by enormous announcements or pronouncements from oil and gas companies and various government mandates. And Michael Lieberich at Bloomberg New Energy Finance has done a really fabulous two-part series on the cost challenges involved in moving transport, industry, and energy storage for long durations over to hydrogen, and the challenges in adapting an increasing amount of green energy excess to generating hydrogen that can be used for those various purposes. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all those cost points and bottlenecks play out. Well, I'd say I spent a lot of time giving guitar lessons over Zoom, which has been pretty interesting. My niece has been picking it up, and my nephew is also starting to want to join in. Zoom is not necessarily optimized for music sharing, so that's been a bit of a challenge. I do remember RMI's grid defection and load defection reports. I thought that was a good example of how RMI kind of fine-tuned its analysis over time to acknowledge that grid defection, simply buying enough solar and storage for large chunks of utility customer base to simply stop needing the grid, was kind of amended to better contextualize the issue at hand to load defection, which is enough solar and storage being deployed so that significant parts of a utility's load would be taken over by distributed energy resources, leaving the utility to manage the increasingly hard to serve portions of load that aren't well served by solar and storage. I was a fan of 1.5 media after the 1.5 degrees Celsius that we need to keep the global warming below to avoid the most catastrophic impacts of climate change. But I think Canary is a little bit more memorable.